Hi, everyone. There's a lot of light. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with our first panel. We're going to talk with Quirijn van den Hoogen from the Rijksuniversiteit Groningen. Then there's Joke de Wolf, who's a writer, art critic, and she's the president of the ICA, the Dutch. It's French, right? The abbreviation. It's the
International Association of Art Critics.
Exactly that. And then there's Sepp, Eckenhaussen, who we all met already during his lecture from Platform BK. First of all, I have a very, very important question. Can you please get off the Wi-Fi immediately? As we have a problem with the live stream, and otherwise it's like either your Wi-Fi, Instagram, or our live stream making this talk accessible for everyone around the world. So please leave the Wi-Fi. Was there any more? No, I think, yeah. So in our first panel, we're going to talk about how the system, basically the system versus politics. So we're going to talk about a few tension points, like autonomy, freedom. Anyway, we'll start. We'll just start. I don't see you, so if it's anyway. Oh yeah, one more important thing. If you do have a question, please raise your hand, and someone will come over with a mic. Also, I forgot to say something very important at the beginning, because I wanted to thank Elise Eri from Jackie Fora for dressing me in this beautiful outfit. So thank you so much for that. Well. Let's get going. In Sepp's lecture, we just heard that we are at a very critical point in history. We're, definitely at the age of death of social art policy. So within our panel, we wanted to talk about, okay, so we're here. What now? So the cuts under Zijlstra and the countless repairs to the BIS under Bussemaker, like the Ministry of Culture, the previous, have led to a very precarious cultural system. And like everyone in their arms agrees that the current cultural system lacks a long-term and sustainable vision. So I wanted to talk with you three about if we could change something about the system, the subsidiary system as it is now. What would you abolish and what would you take with you? This is just to warm up a bit. Who wants to start?
Maybe me. What I would want to abolish is the prestatiecontract. The idea that you define in advance of giving a subsidy for something someone is going to do, and then a meticulous a definition of so many this, and then you have to report on that. So if we can do away with that and get to, okay, if we somehow ascertain that the work you're doing has artistic quality, and that artistic quality is also a form of social quality, then we need not bother with all these meticulous measures and we can do away with them. That would save a lot of time and effort and whatever. So that would be what I would want to take out. And maybe what I would want to stress more is looking at, but that's a more general point, which I may think Sepp made already very well in the lecture. But so just to stress this as how important this is, and that's way beyond cultural politics. But we need to think as a society of how we support the members of our society economically when they work under flexible conditions. And that goes for not only the artists. I'm far more worried about the guys and girls bringing me my the stuff I order online, bringing that to my house, or who fixes my internet connection when it's broken, because they work not even on an hourly fee. They work per parcel, per solved case, and they have to pay their own van to do that. So that's a general issue we really need to get solved.
Yeah. How do you see this, Joke, like both as a writer and as a, let's say, representative of the ICA International? How do you like see your role as a how to say, like as a writer, and like what do you choose? Like you're also sort of a curator in that sense. Like what do you leave and what do you do address? Like how do you deal with that power?
Yeah, well, I'm very well aware of the power you have, and at the same time, you have to deal with it all the time. So maybe you develop a certain, scale of the very big museums. They should be, for example, you should write about them because they're so important, considered, but also try to pick out sometimes the very small initiatives which can also address a very different way of looking at art.
Right.
So and one of the things I would like to get rid of, maybe I was thinking, I mean, I'm not really into the policy making part. I think I'm more, of course I'm looking at the same picture but from the other side. And one of the things that I really encounter a lot is the whole star rating system, which is it's decided by the newspapers mainly, and other. Thinking of your parcel delivers, they're also, you have to rate everything, and this very fast rating of, okay, this is good and this is not good.
Right.
This rating, I would really, I mean, of course, I'm an art critic, so I'm also rating all the time, but at the same time, you have to, some things you cannot judge immediately.
Yeah, it's a very limited perception of quality.
Yeah,
it's like, like 4 stars or 5 stars can be, like, it just depends on what you're qualifying or like qualifying or something. Do you feel like as a writer that you can, like, of course, you're also stirred in what you're writing. Like let's not even touch the topic of also the precarious situations of a lot of writers within the arts, because I think it's very similar to artists actually working within the fields, where also most of art critics are also working as like self-employed, so to payers. Anyway, so I think there's a lot of similarities also between the critics. So this dependency is also there. Like, you also need the shows in order to pay your rent, and the artists need your writings in order to validate their work. So it's a very uneven balance in that sense. Do you feel like you're partaking also in a like that you can stir in a certain discourse, or like do you feel like you're also part of a discourse, or you're just how do you say, like responding to what's happening?
Yeah, that depends. I mean, for the big museums, they have these huge PR departments, much more than the writers, the curators themselves. And they are these people, of course, they also do their job. So they keep calling or writing, emailing me, saying they have the best exhibition ever. And some smaller museums, they just don't have these people working there. So and then sometimes I'm very ashamed that you miss something, and not on purpose, but just because you try to keep track of everything, but it's, of course, it's impossible. And so there is this constant struggle for attention, obviously, and also then there are these huge advertisements sometimes next to the in the newspapers, and these museums, I don't know, I'm not really sure how this works, but obviously it costs lots of money, so it's also a way of and then sometimes they use your stars,
right,
which is also a very strange experience.
Sepp, I was wondering, like an important thing also that Quirijn mentioned and that you also mentioned in your lecture is about like trust and how we deal with that like in the current system. And I think a lot of possible alternatives to the system that we have is a system where politics are far removed from the arts sector, which, for example, you see at the English Arts Council, where the minister formulates the principles, but the Art Council like is responsible for the implementation. And like I don't think the Arts Council is actually a good backup system for us. But I mean, as a how do you, like going also back, like what do you see as something that we should keep and something that we should like get rid of?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think like a few months ago, I spoke to many people who had a COVID realization that after the lockdowns, I'm not going to go back to this lifestyle where I always have to be at each opening, right? There's just so much happening, and this has exactly to do with what Quirijn was saying, this output focus, which is not very much based on trust in artists or institutions to make nice thing. And I mean, I think what Fame did with the 100 Days program was, you know, they made a beautiful program of 100 days, and maybe we need ways to appreciate that in terms of funding as well, and funding structures as well. Because, I mean, yeah, so the Raad voor Cultuur is acting independently, and Rijkscultuurfonds in principle are also, it depends a little bit, but so we have some kind of independence in the system, but it's all very much output focused. I agree very much there, and we need to reconsider how can we work more trust focused. We see the same in education, right? There are so many assessment moments in each course. We all understand that this is not how you create good education. And yeah, I mean, this also goes for art, obviously. I mean, it's not far removed from, art is often very political, but it still needs agency, it needs autonomy.
You wanted to respond on it?
Yeah, you're talking about education, and I realized we are literally paid per student finishing the program. And that's literally how the financing system of Dutch education works, per successful student. And those, whether you need to put in extra effort or not, that's irrelevant. So it's indeed a way bigger problem than only in the arts sector.
Right.
So that's well, I think that's clear.
Yeah.
And so indeed the focus on output and the trust that people will come to important outputs, and I think we can have the trust in professionalism in that sense. We can get back to that. We should try to get back to that. Indeed. I'm not sure whether the English example of the Arts Council is the best. First of all, it's not fitting to our traditions, but more importantly, and let's not forget this, internationally, if I go to conferences and people hear that I'm from the Netherlands, I will hear two things. First about Black Pete, of course, but the other one is, well, you're living in an amazing country because of the cultural policy system in the Netherlands.
Right.
And one of the major advantages in the Netherlands is a combination of actually very high subsidy levels if you compare internationally. So to make a comparison, and my students, that this was a jaw-dropping moment for my students, but I had to explain to them, because a group of students made an analysis of the Arts Council Australia. And they say, oh, these guys deal with a lot of money. It's $32 million a year. And I explained that's less than the budget of the city of Groningen on cultural policy. The whole nation of Australia. It's a continent. Yeah. So let's keep that in mind. And particularly the Arts Council system is a system where subsidy levels are way lower than in the continental European tradition. So that's something you need to keep in mind. But the move from our system towards indeed this individual benefit and this individual nut is the Dutch word, and the need to legitimize, that's what we should try to redress again.
Right.
To get back to the idea that the arts, first of all, are a collective resource. And they are the means, one of the important means, how we tell each other stories. How we communicate on a collective level, and how we share and create a system, you could say, of shared language, of shared imagery. And you need the artists to keep that dynamic. That's
Right.
what the arts in
Right.
society are for. And if we don't make that argument again, and again, that is what we're doing. It's
Right.
about the stories we tell to each other. And those stories are the most important things politicians make decisions on, or the CEO of big companies base their decisions on,
Yeah.
not on numbers.
This is also, Quirijn, I wanted to talk in a recent article you wrote for the Boekman Stichting, which is also for sale there, in the back, that the core of the problem with the cultural system at the moment is the tension actually between autonomy, where you would have like the sector, the institutions, the makers, and control by the president, by current states, state of affairs, by semi-governments and sponsors. And in this article, you argue that the current control, like focus on details, must be replaced by a system that works on a basis of trust, which is also actually going back to what you were saying, and leaves the institution free to make their own choices. And I think we can all agree, but how to implement it? Like how do we get there?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's necessary to realize that people in the art world, so artists and organizers and programmers, they live in a very different world than people who are working in public administration. And we need to recognize that there is that difference there, and that that difference is also necessary. Because we do want public accountability for how tax money is spent. But the level of detail, that's my biggest problem. At the level of detail, and also I heard a few weeks ago that I talked to one of the people doing big projects in the Ommelanden here around the city, and she told me, now they want to know how it's sustainable what I do. How can you ask that of a person organizing a cultural event? That the social impact will be sustainable. So that occurs over years. That's about those stories we tell and those stories we share. That's where it's sustainable. So please simply look at the quality. So get back to the quality, get back to the norms from the field itself as explanatory of social and economic quality. And this is one of the things I try to teach my students also. We've been taught also in the art field itself since the 1960s and 70s, based in, I must criticize him for this, Pierre Bourdieu, he's my idol, but okay. As a sociologist, he really is one of the most important thinkers, but he taught us to think in terms of a opposition between money and art, to say it very crudely. And that is false. It's a false opposition. It's a narrative we tell each other. And it's a narrative that you think of the aesthetic quality and you think of the social impact. No, it's the same thing. Aesthetic quality is social impact.
Right.
There is no opposition, and more instrumental value, that's the term, or extrinsieke value, and more artistic value are not oppositional. So that's a very important argument to make, because for me, artistic quality simply is social quality. And you can trust artists to make artistic quality and a welfare worker to do good welfare work. And if the two want to collaborate, go for it.
Right.
But don't don't meddle in, is this welfare policy? Is this cultural policy? So merge those policies, whatever. I don't care.
But this was, of course, also one of the points that Sepp was making during his lecture, that it's like this, the use of creative industries and social welfare. And even if you look, for example, at on a municipality level, like where the arts or where the cultural funding is placed, it's between, what's the word? Armoedebestrijding. Like fighting poverty and youth care, which of course, it's a weighing scale that you cannot compare. Like, I'm not sure if there's any. Anyway, that's a different conversation about the municipal elections, vote. But I think, also within...
You touch upon something important there. For me, I've worked on many projects when I was in public administration, such as the Groene Forum. And the idea that through a cultural investment, you also develop a creative city argumentation, had the idea of send in the artist first, and then the derelict area will become better.
Yeah.
That's fine, because it does work. You can see examples of it working, examples of it not working, by the way. It doesn't always work. But let's do it in a way that if we create more economic capital, that feeds back to the artists as well. And our current system doesn't allow that. It drives the artist out because they cannot pay the rent anymore.
Yeah.
So that's what governments should really try to find. And
Right.
If they create more value, and that means also more economic value, feed that back into a new thing in the cultural policy instruments we might want to have is that kind of revolving fund. If we create social value, economic value, let it revolve back into the budget for the artists.
Yeah.
Currently, we do not do that. Currently, we penalized artists for being commercially successful if they started out with a subsidy.
Right.
Artists being commercially successful when they started with the subsidy are the proof of the effectiveness of your cultural policies. We just don't see it like that.
I can maybe make it even more concrete. We see artists being used as an instrument of gentrification, right, in bigger cities in the Netherlands. This is a problematic situation. It's something we need to discuss. But one thing that governments could do to go against this is to make spaces for art more durable. So not put an artist in the outskirt and kick them out after 4 years ago to gentrify a new outskirt. But if you would, for instance, make a revolving fund for artist co-ops of studio spaces that would allow for a durable connection with the neighborhood, broad welfare, as the government likes to call it, but also stability for the artists who would not be able, for instance, to make the investment initially, but with the help of the government can take ownership and take responsibility of a space.
Right. Because that was also what I was wondering, like that within the current system, there's a lot of focus on like diversification that you mentioned already, like identity and signature, but much less on sustainability and self-preservation, zelfredzaamheid. And I was just wondering, at the moment you communicate a premise to your sector, you also like dictate the pen that writes the applications. And how do you see like this affecting quality when there's a very like a prominent discourse in how to write like application, what's shown within the sector? It's like, which is actually maybe less diverse than it was before, because it's so dictated by, actually this is I'm answering a question, sorry. Joke, how do you see this?
Yeah, well, obviously I don't read a lot of applications.
Yeah.
So it's more that I go to exhibitions. Also, I try to go also to the Arts Academy and especially also the Rijksacademie, and there you see what, and of course you also get sometimes proposals or exhibitions, and then the artists themselves write sometimes something and try to, well, sometimes it's very good, obviously, and I think it's also so. It's very difficult to write about what you're doing, but also at the same time, there is this apparently need to think that specific words need to be used to make it bigger.
Like
and
what sort of words?
yeah, well, the whole postmodern discourse, or this interaction, or this questioning of things, and you know, I mean, I want answers. I don't want questions. I want, you know, you're making an answer, and why are you saying that you are questioning things? I mean, so there's these kinds of things that keep fashion words that
Right. You mean it's a sort of check boxes, like if you have like whatever.
And they also come up sometimes in press releases, and it's some museums have the tendency to do this as well. But what can we see? Because that's and this also has to do with this trust in artists. So in the end, it is okay. This is good art. Go and see. That's usually should be the central message in these.
I think I was also wondering, like Sepp, in this. I think like we always see the autonomy of the artist in while working as because the artist is autonomous. That also relates to that has a direct effect on quality. That's I think a very romantic notion. But what you were saying also during your lecture is that like the individual position of an artist to the market, that's actually how we see like autonomy. Like if you're able to sustain a living as an artist, which is like something very different than an aspect of quality. So do you? I don't know, do you see like this emphasis of the current system on like this diversification as a direct danger for quality? That's a big question maybe.
Right. Do I see that? Well, I mean, so what is quality? I mean, we see the rise of social practices, right? And we see acknowledgement for that as also a legitimate artistic practice. And in that sense, I think that quality and also social engagement are not opposed to each other, and neither are autonomy and social engagement in that sense. I mean, yes, and autonomy as used by our government means, okay, if you can figure it out without our help, fine, just do it. That's autonomy, sure. And if autonomy to you means doing the thing I want to do, then in reality it means having a side job and your artistic practice next to each other. Doesn't necessarily impede quality, I guess. Are there any people here who are in commissions that decide on distribution of funding? Yes. Is quality still one of the checkboxes there? Not really, right? Or? I think quality is out of sway in commissions because Quirijn can probably explain this more clearly, is that if you have a certain, and this is an issue, is that if you have a certain idea of quality and you have a certain group of people that agrees with that, what you will get is monotony or uniformity, right? And excluding different voices, excluding different types of art and culture. So in that sense, I think that the focus on more instrumental value has maybe brought something that we can learn, is that we need to accept other voices, that we need to accept different types of quality that were maybe not recognized in previous systems before. So, I mean, in the end, it might be also positive that we go through this phase.
Yeah. I'm just, how are we time-wise? I don't see any time, therefore. 5? Oh, okay, we're good. So now, actually, I think this is like maybe you don't have to say like where you work, or maybe if you do want, but like, so what is one of your criteria when judging?
Well, it really depends on the particular application or the particular project or context in which the person or institutions applies for funding. So sometimes context is very important, the quality of the plan, of the project, the people involved. It can be very broad in that sense, and all these different aspects are part of the part of the advice you give to within the context of the commission. So yeah.
Yeah. Are there any? Thank you so much for sharing this. Are there any artists in the room that feel like when they're writing an application that they cannot just freely talk about their work, but have to mention certain, how to say, buzzwords, or does anyone wants to elaborate on that? Maybe with a glass of wine later.
But it's
think
true. When I but this is 15 years ago, when I left the public service of the municipality of Groningen, and they were nice enough to give me a nice borrel. And that's when some of the people from the cultural sector said to me, Quirijn, it's all nice, and you wrote excellent policy documents, because they were so helpful for me. Because what I did, I scanned those documents and I saw what the buzzwords were, and I made sure that on every application, on every page, there were at least 3 to 4 of these buzzwords. Yeah. And then I get the money and I can do whatever I want. Mm-hmm. That's autonomy too, by the way. Mm-hmm. The problem arises when you start controlling. At the end, you start evaluating. Okay, if say creative impact or those kind of things. How do you operationalize and how do you start to measure? Mm-hmm. If you go to that level of detail, then every buzzword is a potential danger. Mm-hmm. Because then, but again, if you as an institution. What I like, for instance, when I was asked to do a review in the city of Enschede about their cultural policy, and what I liked about what they did there is that they went to these institutions and they said, "You guys, we have to provide some numbers, numbers. So if you guys think up, okay, these are the numbers that we can produce simply based on our running on what we do. Yeah. And then we make an agreement that you will deliver those numbers every year. Yeah. And that we also can hold you to certain thresholds that you think are realistic. Right. Yeah. Okay. That's a politics of trust. But that requires an alderman in the city government and the director of the institution of the administrative service to then say, okay, I accept those numbers, those data, and I'm not putting mine on it. Yeah, and that's. If that doesn't happen, then you're in trouble. Yeah. But of course, I think this is an issue that we see overall within politics, and not just in cultural politics. That it's like the end of social politics in that sense. You see this in the healthcare system. You see this especially, for example, in the mental health care system. Like what you were saying about the students. Like, I need to have this X amount of money in order to make a living. You see this within art, but you also see this with. Like within the GGZ, like the mental health organization, where it's like, okay, you need to be better in like 6 months, and otherwise you're uncurable. And you need to make numbers. And I think it's especially like the datification of health, art is very difficult. And this is also like, for example, with the Boekman Stichting and the SER, this was with the Raad voor Cultuur also, like this was a very important, what's it called, like a report. Also, but because it was quantified by the sector, it's like, so this is our input and this is our output. It's also like within international cultural policy, it's like, okay, so how much money do we make in Germany? How much money do we make in America? Which is like very often, like you probably all know it, like let's say you do a residency somewhere. It's not as if you can say like, so in December I made €6,000 because of this residency. It's not like 4 years later, the organization asked me for a project in Japan or like back into Groningen. So it's hard sometimes to quantify what exactly the amount of money is actually, which brings me back that that I think like you're both saying from a policies perspective that we need a policy that's based more on trust, which is a very social concept of policy. So
are we maybe in a positive, at the beginning of something positive? Like we're in war. After the Second World War, there was a very, like, I'm trying to end on a positive note. Like, do you think maybe, I know, Quirijn, you're not so positive about the state of...
No, but I am positive about the counter movement to capitalism. I think in general in society we started to realize that this is not the best option. And so that's positive. But I was thinking when you said, yeah, we're talking about the politics of trust, that means also that we trust politicians. And we currently don't.
No.
Really, we don't.
Yeah.
So that is a difficult thing. And I don't trust directors of administrative organizations. I once got called into my director's office because there was a complaint about a decision I had prepared by the provincial government. This guy had actually threatened me through the phone. And the only thing the director was interested in was, this needs to go away. Not my personal safety, not whether I was legally right or whatever. I don't care, by the way. But it's taxpayer money, so that's why we should care. But it was only, make this go away. If that's the kind of management that's normal in public administration, I'm not so positive.
Yeah. And please.
Yeah, I had a bit of a problem with the, I think, scale. So this whole time we never talked about who is trusting who is the very specific person or institution who now does the checking or the directing. So I was wondering if there is now a power dynamic of, well, directing or checking. Isn't trust accepting the same dynamic? Because trust is also something one should give to another. Is this question
Yeah, trust is trust in people, of course. And,
but as
so
as a political system, isn't it the same kind of dynamic?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So why could it help? What should we need within that dynamic that it's different than how it works right now?
Yeah, for me, but that's an abstract answer. Let's not check everyone. We are again, this is the praise for the Dutch cultural policy system, that it's transparent, that you know why a decision has been made, but we are also in the downside of transparency, because knowing everything about everyone and everything is hell, really, and it's not paradise.
Yeah.
So in that sense, if someone says, yeah, but I'm doing this, this is my intention, and then go with that story and listen to their story. And if you don't like the story, you don't give the money. That's fine. But that's the way it works. But yeah, that's kind of more. And I know it's abstract. I'm sorry, but that's the problem of.
But I think it also, sorry to interrupt you, but I think it also goes back to your concluding note, Sepp, about. Like, I think very often, like, arguments against a universal basic income, but people take advantage of it. So therefore, we should not implement it. But on the other side, like, if people have less stress, they're healthier. So it's like, if you just give a basic... Anyway, so like you said, like, there should be a collective effort for, like, maybe creating, like, universal basic income, maybe especially within the precarious situations of artists, for example. Do you think that would solve a lot of these issues?
Yeah, I'm convinced that it would, and I'm also seeing a lot of social movements that I have a lot of trust in, and I see it in Europe, I see it beyond Europe. I mean, I see Art Workers Italia being established, starting to fight for a European minimum wage. You know, we can connect to that. I see writers' unions that are also connecting to artists. I think that's a good direction. And I think that solidarity movements from a grassroots level are very, very promising right now. And even if we don't trust government so much, they can be very helpful for the future. But I mean, what I also maybe want to just add on the discussion on data and measuring and control, like data are not per se bad, but they're also not neutral, right? And we think that we have all the data, but we don't have all the data.
Of course.
Because we have the data that we need to, like, okay, you spent this and this and this money, what did you spend it on? But for instance, we know that in the Netherlands we have a gender gap in the arts, but we don't have the data on it, so we can't put our finger on it, we can't fight it. So it's also about, engaging in a discussion and taking ownership over what kind of data are we gathering, and to what goal are they used, right? So it's also having a say about what are data and having a conversation about that with people who are gathering data, I think will create a sense of trust more than we have now.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was thinking something, well, connected to what you were asking about, something positive, and reacting also to one of the slides you showed about the choice between buying a Rembrandt or choosing for the money for the fair practice, paying the artist. I think it's, in a way, a positive thing that in the Netherlands, recent, about 2-3 years, there's been a huge, in the media and on television and also in newspapers in lesser sense, interest for Rembrandt, being Rembrandt, our next Rembrandt, and that, so this, at least there is something kind of a movement of people are really thinking of, oh yeah, you can make something, and you can see how, and usually they're trying to remake other paintings or making portraits, but at least there is something, also in this sense that goes beyond only, again, a Rembrandt, instead of being a contemporary artist who can actually say something about the world we are living in now.
Yeah. No, absolutely right. I think we slowly have to wrap it up. And I was actually wondering, like Quirijn, in our pre-conversation, like voorgesprek, we briefly talked about one of the main aspects in your lectures and talking to students, that is that you want to sort of almost like weaponize them on a verbal level with a very a very accurate position in I wrote this down, that they're very outspoken about the necessity of arts. And this might sound like very sort of like basic knowledge, but I see a lot of people struggling in the field with like defending their position towards family members, towards society in general, about like, as we maybe don't believe in the romantic idea about like the intrinsic value of arts anymore. I was actually, when we finished our conversation, I was just very curious, like, what do you tell them? Like, how do you weaponize them verbally?
The basic thing is what I already said at the beginning, about stories. So basically what the arts are about is telling each other a story and allowing, so someone who comes to your gallery or buys your work, buys into a sort of process where they are focusing on, it's not my personal issues, or I'm listening to you, I'm watching what you do, I'm smelling or tasting sometimes, I'm following you, and I let you direct what happens. And the arts actually are the only place where that happens. Not only the subsidized by arts, by the way. Hollywood is based on this whole premise that lots of people are interested in going to cinema and following a story of someone else. That's a crucial exercise in empathy. To let someone else determine what happens and what the outcome of your encounter is. And we almost nowhere else in our societies do this. So it's a crucial faculty that the arts are about, and that I think the government has a role in preserving in society and providing room for. And the other thing is also something that I already tried to indicate is that all these narrative of instrumental values and the economic instrumentals values of art are the strongest, the most convincing in our current society. They are narratives. So the whole Richard Florida stuff scientifically has been already disproven, even by himself, by the way. So that whole narrative, but it's a strong narrative. So use it. Why not?
Yeah.
What's the harm in doing that? So making the argument that your project, your artist studio in a neighborhood contributes to the value of that neighborhood, and that ultimately might lead to regeneration of that neighborhood. I don't see the harm in that, as long as you know that it's a narrative you are creating, and that it's not the key of what you're doing. Because it doesn't happen if you don't have an artist studio where something interesting happens. Then nothing happens.
Yeah.
So that's where it starts. So it's a creation of a narrative. It's not reality. And I hope my students realize that that's what they're participating in when they're doing cultural policy.
Yeah.
And so these policy documents are also the creation of a reality. And if that's a reality we together like, then it's fine. If we want to change it, we can, because it's the reality we created together. So that's, and for me, the last point, I think to be able to operate in that public administration or in those advisory committees, it's also, for me, it's important that you understand what artists are doing, so that you at least can follow. From the perspective I'm in, we say our students need to be able to communicate on a professional level about music, theater, visual art. So also those lectures on art history, on theater and music history, and are crucial also if you take up an institutional role. If you take up the role of building policies, of programming, you need to understand what this sector is about.
Yeah.
So those are the three things I hope they take away from my courses and my colleagues' courses, and also of the other universities where these kind of programs are.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I hope also this is something that you can take with you, and I think it also resonates with how you, Sepp, concluded your lecture, that we need the imagination and the new narratives in order to envision also new possibilities. I think we have to leave it with that. Is anyone, do one of you still have a very urgent remark? Then now, anyone, any questions? I don't know, emotional topics you want to bring up? Anything? Then thank you so much for this conversation. And then we'll do a very short break again, 5-10 minutes, and then we'll continue with the next panel. Thank you.
Your hands showed me a dance. I'm in a
Hi everyone, welcome back. Oh, hoe wil je mij? Oh. Hi everyone. Wait, is my mic on? Do you hear me? Oh yeah, okay. Hi, welcome back. Thank you so much for still being here. We have a bit of a delay, which I think is normal. It's only 20 minutes. So in our second panel, we're going to have a conversation with the actual artist in the room, which is very important because I think in a lot of discussions and panels about policy or about power, we often talk about artists. And what we wanted to do with this symposium is actually to have round up or finish up. How do you say it? End with the artists so that they can have their final say. And after this panel, we will still have the workshops. There's spots in every workshop. Every workshop still has spots available. So you can pay in the back and then just take a seat, or maybe the other way around. You do the workshop and then pay. This I don't know, but just pay. So we will now have our second conversation where we will talk about autonomy versus the system. And I am not going to introduce my panelists because I would love for you all to introduce yourself. Who wants to start? Don't look so worried. Do your thing.
How will I introduce myself?
Hey, whatever feels comfortable.
So, well, maybe I introduce myself by the things that I, like the fundings that I got. So maybe that's
if you feel that represents yourself the best,
and the ones that I didn't get,
yeah,
maybe?
Yeah.
No, I don't know all of them. But maybe
yes.
Yes. Okay, there's a yes. So I'm a child of the VWIK, the VWIK.
Yeah.
That worked out for me pretty well because it kept me floating. I didn't get the Stadsstipendium 3 times in a row, while my studio mate did get it, so that was hard.
You have a different studio mate now? Or?
No, I still have the same studio mate, Feiko Beckers, great friend. And then I did get a Fonds voor Beeldende Kunst residency. So I applied for it and I got it to Suriname. And then I got on a roll with residencies and I went to Istanbul, Berlin and Curaçao. Then I didn't get the Basisstipendium. Again not, and I fought for it. I went to complain and then a few months ago, I did get it.
Oh, really? Congrats.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, round of applause.
So now we all know.
Oh.
Please don't applaud.
Oh, please do. Oh.
And in between, I got a few little things, projects, funds or something, and some not, some yes. So I'm an artist, and I studied in Groningen. And, well, we'll talk about my work later.
I do have an immediate question, because it's of course,
I have side jobs to pay for.
Like hustle.
Sometimes I sell something very small.
What are your side jobs related to the art, or are they?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very tiring.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
I also been a mailman.
Oh yeah.
In Groningen, when I had the VWIK and I didn't get the Stadsstipendium, Feiko stopped being a mailman, and I had to continue being a mailman. Yes.
So you still had to get up early, and he could stay in bed.
Yeah,
like
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Like my immediate, of course, it's a bit of a funny thing. Like you didn't get the Startstipendium of Basisbeurs, like the different names of the Mondrian Fund, like subsidiaries. Yeah. Now that you finally did get it, does it feel like a sort of validation of you as an artist? Let's get deep into psychoanalysis here.
No. I trust in my own work, so when I applied first, I also thought, well, I get positive feedback sometimes, so maybe I get it. So in retrospect now, I see it more as like just it's a game. You sometimes are lucky, sometimes not. Mm-hmm. But when I first 2 times I didn't get it, it was really like, what am I gonna do now? But your question, if I feel more validated, I mean, it's something that, people start applauding for it. and I see also some people on Instagram or something basically putting as their first thing after they're saying they're an artist that they're supported by the Mondrian funds with this or this. And it seems like a seal of approval, and that's how it works in the cultural field a little bit. Like, oh, if you get that funding, that means, well, it's a bit serious. You're really an artist.
Yeah.
So, but if you as an artist yourself need that to feel an artist, then I think then you lose your autonomy because you sell your soul to
Okay, don't spill your beans yet. We're going to talk about autonomy much longer. Elise, please take the stage.
Thanks for the mic, Steven. So my name is Elise. I live in Paris, where I work as a fashion designer, but I also work with Kitty Maria, who's based in Amsterdam, so as an artist. So basically, there are more opportunities for us to make projects in the Netherlands than in France at the moment. That's it.
Like you mean you often work in Holland, and like the things that you make in Holland are not possible to make in France or to get subsidiary?
Frisian library, I've done that for a while. When I graduated at Frankmore, I was already doing workshops, and I sort of just kept on going from there. I was doing workshops with kids mostly on technology and creativity and how to use technology creatively. And I never really applied for fundings. Like I applied for the Mondrian Fund once, and that didn't work out. And then I was like, fuck it, this is stressing me out too much. And because I was doing these workshops, I could just do my own thing. I could do like 2 workshops a week, and the rest of the time was just making art, and I can't even remember what I did in that time. It just flew by. The years just fly by. But then last year, it's already almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, Corona
when
times.
I started working at NP3, which is a gallery here in Groningen. And the workshop stopped because of the corona, so I had to find something else. And then I got to work there, and now I'm also doing like teaching jobs alongside, just gallery stuff basically, like all sorts of things.
And can you tell something, because I know like your work relates a lot to the workshops you're doing, but can you tell a little bit more about your artwork? For people that haven't seen anything yet, like sometimes you see a slide coming by.
Yeah, you can see some slides with a lot of squares. Yeah, those are all Instagram posts that I do. So I make these installations, or sometimes they're like actions, or mostly it's like a small performance, and then I film it and I put it on Instagram. And that's basically all the effort I put in there to remain in the art world, and the rest of the time I'm just like waiting for people to be like, I saw you on Instagram, or I talk to people, and then like even Willem here, he invited me because through Instagram we did a project together, and then he was like, you want to come to Rotterdam to do something, and sort of the ball keeps rolling for me like that. And I'm really grateful for that, because I know how stressful it can be to like have to apply, or I don't know. I also feel like those things suit me. This way of working suits me, and this way of being in life suits me. And for other people, maybe the applications do work, and it's very hard for me to sort of stay judgment-free in that, because like when I see people struggling, I'm like, why do you do this to yourself? But I don't know how others feel about that, because this is my way.
I think maybe this is a nice bridge to Esther, our fourth artist. Like, why do you do this? Or
I just had one more thing.
Yeah, please.
They asked me today to wear one color, but I feel a bit tricked because this table isn't showing my full outfit. Can I stand up for a moment?
Great.
I had
you can stand on the table. Oh, wow. That deserves an applause.
I pulled out everything yellow.
They're cheese onion lace chips.
Oh yeah, chips.
Are those for sale? Are they
Well,
not yours?
I got them for Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're on sale somewhere.
Maybe you should ask Santa.
She even matched her phone with the outfit. So yeah, I
You have a
really,
red phone? Oh no, to fit. Oh wow. Well, everything's so beautiful. Yeah, this is also great. Yeah. Going back to the very urgent question, like Esther, why are you doing what you do, and what do you do?
I make sculptures. I have my studio in the Biotoop in Haren. Actually, we got good news this week.
Oh.
Because we heard that, for sure now the gemeente, the municipality, will buy it. And there's like 150 studio, or not only artists, but also a lot of small other activities, and also people living there. So, but it's good news. We
Congrats!
can
That
continue
actually
for-
deserves an applause. Yeah.
And they will buy it, but they also said that they will really like to continue the way it is going there. So
That's great.
yeah.
And you make sculptures,
Yes.
which also sometimes you see, like this is Elise's work, but so there's a constant loop of all the works. And also you are also a thriving force within the art community in Groningen, as I've understood, where don't be shy.
Yeah. Okay.
Where like you put a lot of effort into the art scene and into the collective. I don't know how to say. I think also like what we heard from the previous panel is that it's also important to like make standpoints as a collective and not like every individual artist on an island is. I think what you've also seen during the Corona crisis is, or like we're still in it, but I mean, is a very precarious situation where everyone's like from an island saying like, I'm drowning, please help. But like it's when you raise a collective voice, you're just louder. It's just as simply as this. And I think that can you tell a little bit about what you achieved like during the Corona crisis, like in the distribution of money in Groningen? Like I didn't want to spill your.
Yeah, I think you
story.
said it already quite well. Like I found out that actually with spending the way the gemeente was spending the money, that I saw it like how the money was spent, and I realized that I was just part of such a small minority scene that the artists are seen as a minority within the art field, even the way the money is spent. So that is when me and some colleagues indeed came together and said like, we have to come together as artists and collect signs from artists and raise our voice for not only how to say, also the autonomy for arts, of course, but also the to try to let the money be spent not only top down but also bottom up, because we found that when all the money is going to be spent via institutions, it won't reach the artists.
Yeah. Because what you did, like, correct me if I'm wrong, is that like there was initially what was it? I forgot the amount of money, but like 1.5
There
million?
was 3.6 million.
Okay.
Million for gemeente Groningen.
Right. And it was actually going to like a few bigger institutions, like 6, I think.
The Forum Groningen and the Groningen Museum and Spot from Oosterpoort. Yeah, and a few others. But.
Yeah. And what you managed with like raising this, like with a collective, and also like being very verbal in terms of like talking to the municipality about it, is that it was distributed amongst 89 artists, I think.
80, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So everyone got a grant to work with, and which was also not per se based on quality, but just a necessity, like how much they needed it.
Yeah, we also had a voice in that because I was first the idea of Kunstpunt, because Kunstpunt was spending the money, was asked to spend the money. Yeah, they had other plans, like more format plans initially.
Right.
And yeah, so we said, yeah, the artists are the ones who know what they need at this moment. So it's important that the art is free, that the artists are free to send in proposals and to say what they need at this moment, because they know, yeah.
Yeah, they know what they need.
Yeah.
Which is also like going back to like the previous panel, that if you're given trust, you can also act more free and independently. Which I think like we talked a lot about this, about like, sorry, did you wanted to say something else? No. Like we talked a lot about like autonomy versus the system. It feels weird to have two conversations at the same time, but and I wanted to look at these issues a little bit more also in detail of looking at all your work and practices. And Stefan, I was just wondering, you, how to say, you often present your work in public spaces or deal with public spaces, even if you like I think about like the cactus in Curacao, right? Or the common sweat saunas in Brussels. How do you? Maybe can you tell a little bit about your work, about these practices or about these works that I just mentioned, and how you use the system to create also your own opportunities.
Use the system. Well, for example, with the common sweat sauna, there was that's just a project space in Brussels that basically you just have to know a little bit of the owner who's rich, and he gets some funding also from the Brussels art fundings. And then but then there was not much money to do anything, so you get a space and maybe a bit of material cost. And but then I noticed in the basement there was a lot of wood, and so I already was interested in sauna. So that was for me a trigger to, I'm going to build a sauna, but obviously I cannot do it inside the gallery, so it will happen outside. So. And this logic has been happening quite a few times, where I was like, yeah, okay, there's not a lot of money, but there is some material, some leftovers, or in Curacao, there is not really a cultural stage. But
because you were doing a residency there, right?
Yeah, I was there in January till April 2017, I think. And but there was Carnival, so then that's the stage where I like, how am I going to make my work visible? So if there's not a real cultural platform, or it would be like in a small museum for mostly retired Dutch people, I could give a lecture there. But I wanted to really be part of some kind of social cultural event. It seemed obvious to go there. So there's always a bit of a play between what is possible and what kind of material is there, and how can I make this into a mix, the two. So also Brussels doesn't have a clandestine kind of sauna culture. Like I know in Amsterdam I can find some squatter saunas, and also in Groningen. In Brussels not really. Well, there are a few now, but then not really. So it was also, I see a lack and I see something. So
we can interrupt you for 1 second. Is everyone familiar with the squatter sauna scene? It's the first time I heard about this.
Should really
Everyone
get
knows?
to know it.
Okay. Okay, whatever.
It's naked people, and you can just drink beer inside.
Okay, sorry. It was just a mental side note.
But then, for example, I went also to a festival in Finland where there's like 50 mobile saunas altogether. So just to talk about lack and a system, it's more like the biggest example, I think, was where I was really in trouble was in Haarlem, in 37 PK, which is a gallery quite big, And 3 ex-FMI students were asked to do something. I did also the Frank Moore. And then they applied for budget, but then they didn't get any. So it was basically, there's maybe 400 euros each or something. And it's quite a big space. And I'm not an artist who has like a whole storage of work. And then again, I just went to the storage downstairs. And I was like, well, there's quite some leftover wood. And there was just a rehearsal space of musicians closing. So I invited all the musicians to play, and it was also my birthday. So I asked all my friends to come with the excuse of my birthday to do something there. So it became a performance with all the material. So it was really like all on the edge of like what was still acceptable as like, okay, I can still do this. And at the end, it cost me $1,500 because I crashed the van into a little pole, the rental van. So in the end, it was not a financial success, but then...
And you weren't insured?
Well, you have your own risk. Eh? So
of course, sorry.
So it's like, even if it's a small dent. So that also happens, and then you just have to pay up. Yeah.
And I was just wondering, like, how do you find your audience? Like, for example, like the example in Curacao, then were you just partaking in the parade, or how do you? Like,
you go to all the meetings of the carnival. So I think also whenever you, this is not maybe an advice to young artists or something, but wherever you want to present your work, you also have to show a lot of interest in whatever is the place where you're gonna present. So in Suriname it was also very difficult because there was not really, and also no interest at all, but a lot of interest in music. So I organized jam sessions, and then a lot of people come to you, and it becomes something that in the end then pays out, because then all the people come. And with the carnival, it was also like I just showed up at all the meetings, and then I danced a little bit in this crowd, and then somebody took a video, and I became like a celebrity in Curacao because they posted on Facebook, and a day later it was like 15,000 hits and a lot of comments about like why I was there and this kind of thing. So it's really about like just trying to find the audience by going also to the audience in those places. But here in Holland or in Belgium, it's maybe a different formula.
I was like, I actually wanted to also ask this question to you, Dragan, because in your like introduction or whatever you want to call it, like you also said that you can I say said goodbye to the subsidiary supported art world and just created work or are creating work that you want to make. So how do you deal with public, and like do you care about the public? Because I think like when you fit into a subsidiary system or when you apply for funding, like how you reach the audience, what the expected numbers are very important, like measuring systems with in applying for funding. So how do you relate to your audience when you don't have to explain if there's maybe no one seeing it or watching, or is it clear what I'm saying?
Yeah,
okay.
I think I'm just looking a bit like
okay.
But I'm understanding what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
It's all about Instagram followers.
Did you buy them?
No, I didn't buy them. No. But yeah, in a way, it is for me about Instagram followers, because I know that whenever I post something, it's going to be looked at, I don't know how many hundreds of times, and for me that's enough. And I've been posting since I've had 100 followers, and I don't really care how many there are, but it's still somehow a form of validation for yourself that you just do your own thing, and then people are apparently interested in it, and I'm not getting money from it or anything, but then other opportunities come up to make money also. And for me also, the making of the art is not about showing the audience per se, but it's also about keeping myself in the loop and keeping myself sharp and just having fun also. And in the other jobs that I'm doing, it's important for me to keep this up to date. And like if I want to teach, like right now we have Frankmore students at the gallery, and I'm like having conversations with them about their work and giving them tips and everything. If I wouldn't be making the art, I would just I would sort of lose contact with being an artist. So yeah, for me that's, I guess, the most important part. It's just like a training or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So like if like your own work is like visible via Instagram, and you do move around in the art world, but like your own work is not in that sense supported by institutional conventions, so to say. How do you like working for a gallery is one thing, but like how do you relate to the professional art world as an artist, or as like, you know, someone that went through like a very, how to say, classical study, like you went to art academy, did a master at Frankmore, and it's pushing you in a, you know, in a Dutch funding like subsidized system. So how do you deal with that sort of path? Like you clearly stepped away from that path. Like how do you see those professional art world people doing their thing? Like how do you relate to that? You can say whatever.
Well, now I'm trying to figure out what you're asking. I feel very distanced from it, and that's actually a thing, because yeah, I work for a gallery and we deal with fundings a lot also, and helping people get fundings and maneuver through the art world. And it's like, I should care about these things more than I do, I think, somehow. And it makes me feel uncomfortable sometimes that I have no idea what's going on half of the time in the art world. I feel like I'm sort of doing my own thing more, and like before the talk, I also was talking to Steven, and I was like, yeah, I don't even know why you invited me for this talk, because I had to like Google what is neoliberalism in the art world and stuff like that. I just don't care about those things. I just want to do my own thing and just follow.
Well, I cannot speak for Het Resort, but I do think like it's especially also what we heard like during the first panel, that like autonomy is now seen as how you as an individual relate to the market. That's autonomy, but that's like a very limited understanding of what autonomy is, especially within the art, and how you move around is also very autonomous in a very very just what the word autonomy means, that you move independently, free from conventions, like more sort of etymological autonomy. Anyway, let's not get into semantics, but I mean, where you make art not to make money, not to have more funding, or to just because you like it. And I think that is something that a lot of artists don't have the possibility, don't have maybe the privilege to do so, like you also said goodbye in that sense to a world that's also very disillusioning, or how do you say that, like for you? You say what?
Sorry, did you really say goodbye?
To what? To fundings?
No, you're just having a break, right? Like at some point you will apply again, or this is a life choice?
No, I don't think so. No, it's not a choice. I just don't feel it. Like I don't see the point of.
But 5 years later, you might feel different.
I don't know, because even like I feel like I'm drifting away from the art world further and further somehow. Because I like through the years, I noticed things that I enjoy change also. And in the beginning, I wanted to become an artist, and I wanted to like make my money from art and just be like in the studio and whatever. And then I graduated, and I never got a studio. I was just working from home because it didn't feel right to me immediately. And like right now, I'm doing work in the art world, and I feel like every now and then I remember, oh yeah, shit, I haven't posted anything on Instagram for 2 months, maybe I should make something, but then it's like, okay, then why am I making something? Just so that I have something to show also doesn't make sense. If I'm not feeling it, and if I'm feeling this other thing now, I'm just gonna go that way. It's like feeling into what I find important in my life in that moment. And right now I've started 2 years ago, I started an organization in consciousness development and like personal development with 3 friends, and that's also now growing into something else, which is sort of separated from the art world, but it's like a place where people can come and find themselves. And well, basically what I'm talking right now, like how I feel like I've managed to position myself in the world by just doing the things that I love. I would love to spread that to other people as well. Yeah. And yeah, I feel like right now I'm moving more towards that way also.
But can I ask a question? Because I had the feeling it gets a little bit confused now. Because you were talking about the institutions and then Instagram being non-institutional. But then, of course, Instagram or Meta is like the third wealthiest company in the world, right? So it's a huge institution. It's just a different institution than, let's say, the MoMA. But it's
also like
it's also completely embraced by the classic art world, let's say the contemporary modern art world, as being our non-institutional babies, Instagram, etc. So it is part of the institutional art world. It's just a platform he chooses.
No, I think we're talking about something different, because I said like being backed by institutions, and of course, like it's not like you're not making money by Instagram. That's like we can talk about the democracy of Instagram or like the. Yeah. But it's like he's not supported by Instagram in that sense, that like most art institutions use Instagram or TikTok or Facebook as a way of PR or as part of their entrepreneurship. That's that's without a doubt. But but like by choosing a platform like independently from funding, that I think that's the point.
But that's the question, right? Because you would still take funding if it would be offered.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. No, so it's fine, yeah.
But I'm not going out of my way to get it if I don't feel comfortable with it, if it doesn't resonate me with that in that moment. Yeah, that's basically it, yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's 2 different things. For example, what Stefan was saying before, that you do apply for the basisbeurs or the backup, which is like makes total sense because you need to make a living. But it's like you said, I try to make a living in another way so that I can make my work independent from the institutions, basically.
Yeah, and also in the sense of the Instagram being my platform and that's the institution. Another way that I also present my art is I just make I use now Instagram to show it, but I also sometimes do things on the street, like I show things from my window, for instance. I also post it on Instagram, but I also do things outside just for the fun of it. I don't then that's also my institution is the street then, if Instagram is an institution in that sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that Instagram is very dependent on a certain kind of, if it works well on that format. So you start to also make things that fit into the format of Instagram. I once made some paintings and somebody took pictures and they were directly like looking, but they bought a painting. Yeah. It also works well on the phone.
But I think
I was like, what? Because some paintings work better than others. And I think also a lot of art practices, and this is also in relation to applying for funding.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't work so well in documentation. So they are dependent on stories, like Quirijn said. Like you have to give it words, and that's sometimes hard for an artist. And it took me also a long time, because the Staatstipendium, I won't read them again, but they're probably very bad. Like what I wrote then. I know the work was good, but I couldn't put it into 20 images and a story. And that was very highly frustrating, because some work just works well in a medium like documentation. And also, if you do a sauna, you're not going to come in with a camera, right? Like, that's going to destroy the work, actually. So I think also fragility is like, the platforms that your work well, if that way of working, of like throwing things on Instagram and having also responses works, that's fine. But I agree with Alban that Instagram is also an institute on itself. But
I think like this is something that's like, without a doubt, Instagram had a major effect on the art world, and it's to the effect like how museums install their works, that it fits better. I think this is a very important topic, but not for today. Okay. I wanted to ask, like, Elisa, we saw, like, for example, we see you here at Palais de Tokyo in Paris, and I was wondering also, like, can you tell a little bit about this work that you make with Kike Maria?
Yeah. So we started to dress as air hostesses in 2014, and we are quite revolted air hostesses. So we withdraw from the labor market, and we don't host anymore. So from that point, we have to find new gestures. So this is the performance we make, basically. But it was interesting with the topic of today, that this project of non-hosting has something to deal with the care. That is something totally invisible in the neoliberal society. So we keep on unfolding the characters and the action also through the idea of care, and let's say to not host anymore.
And do you mean in terms of like the work of care, like being invisible labor, just like artistic work? Yeah. Is that what you mean? Sorry, I didn't.
Like the care, in general. I mean, it was invisible till the pandemic, maybe. But what was your question exactly? No,
I was actually like trying to understand better what you were saying, that like the performance at the Palais de Tokyo, it's. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about also the stewardesses. How do you say this in English? Being like out of work, and how they deal with like labor and also the serving or the caring work actually that they do, but also like safety work or like.
They're not providing any service anymore, so they just try to enjoy time and practice tango. Or have fun.
And I think it also this is, I think, also a bigger theme in your practice or in your work, where you did the residency here at the resort in 2019, I think. Yeah. Where you like it was in the pool here. I'm not sure the name of the pool, but like
the Papiermolen.
Okay, and where you actually. You made a performance with all the workers at the people working at the pool, like making sure that the pool is opening every day, and actually the labor behind the scenes. So not the actual fun, but the cleaning,
Since you really have a good time at the Papiermolen during summertime, as you might know, but there are a lot of people working behind the scene, and I just wanted to show and also to play these characters. And I do think I'm quite. I mean, the neoliberal society we've been in for the past decade is a great inspiration for my work, because, as it was said, like a lot of people tend to become entrepreneurs, and they have different jobs, several jobs, and they start playing different characters, and this is this is what I am interested in.
And I think especially also when you talk like the labor of care, which it obviously increased. Like let's not talk about like pandemics emancipation, because it's a whole different topic. But I mean, do you, in your work, you deal a lot with labor and also the precarious situations a lot of people are in doing labor, like domestic labor, care labor, artistic labor. Do you feel like during your work you also got a different understanding of artistic labor, or the labor that art is in that sense?
Like,
maybe my question wasn't clear. I think then let me think. Like in your work, you reflect a lot on the systems that are questioning the value of labor, by a neoliberal society, but also by payments, by wages, by social structures. Do you through your work also get a different understanding of artistic labor and how that's valued?
yeah, because I also have the feeling that there's a lot of invisible labor in the art field.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why also maybe we get underpaid, because nobody notices like the time and the effort and all the network we have to build, the exhibition we have to see, the books we have to read, the podcasts we have to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also part of the labor somehow, because we have to be aware of what happens in the world at the moment, and this is seen as leisure sometimes, while it's part of the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. Question? Yeah, sorry.
When talking about care, I'm curious about the courage of saying no as well. I was giving a guest lecture last week at St. Joost, and there were like people in their last year of the academy, and we talked about unpaid labor in the arts. And some people said, "Okay, I'll do unpaid labor if I can do art while doing it." And then one of their classmates says, "Well, yeah, but I have a kid. I can't do that. I have to say no." So when we talk about care, do we also talk about taking the courage to say no? And when do you say no? How do you navigate these questions as artists? Do you care in that way?
If I do, sorry, I didn't. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I think what's also, like Sepp is saying, it's also related to what you were saying. Like, do you pick up a phone call like during the weekends or in the evenings? Like, when do you?
Well, I mean, you all guys, you people seem to have figured out your balance quite well. Like, you managed to get enough money to do what you want to do, and maybe there are some questions, but okay, you manage, right? But there's people who don't manage and who fall through the gaps. And maybe there's a collective responsibility to also at some point say, no, I cannot do this now. And that is also taking care of each other. Because I could do it, but the person that I wanted to also be able to do it can't do it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also have the feeling that I don't really take care of myself. I'm talking about this in my work, but then I just keep on working a lot, having freelance jobs next to it to fund myself and to get my autonomy. So I should start to take care of myself, maybe.
Mm-hmm. No, but I think this is also like what we're talking about. Like, these precarious situations are also like if not we, but like if we all like in different fields are not saying as a collective, like, let's say we don't pick up calls at the weekends, like other people in normal jobs, they don't answer emails at 10 on a Sunday evening, or like in general the care labor. And this, I also wanted to.
Can I respond?
Yeah, sure.
So I also work in a school in Brussels, and I also do a lot of technical support for exhibitions. But it also goes a bit the other way, because artists, then I'm helping the artists, and the artists are also like 24/7 going, but they also treat everybody around them then as also having to be available constantly. And I often understand, because you're in this storm of finally presenting something, and it needs to be good, and There's no other support. So I see also with myself trying to make boundaries, and then saying no is very difficult for me, also for other artists, because yeah, sure, okay, yeah, okay, you didn't think of that, I will pick up the ball here. But when I started as an artist, I of course had the VWIC, and this kept me floating for the first years after Art Academy. But I did a lot of exhibitions that there was, of course, no money, but I just saw it beneficial to make work. So as an artist, you also look for reasons to make work. So the amount of Instagram followers, or so if there is a platform, then I can get motivated, and it also feeds me. So it's tiring, and I might have to sacrifice a little bit of my energy and free time. But it also feeds me, and I think that's, as an artist, that's how I keep my balance. It's like I see why I'm doing it. So also as a technician, I sometimes think like, like I'm really like beat after 80-hour week or something.
Yeah.
This really happens. But then I think also, well, but the production was good. So, you know, like something came out. So I think that's part of saying no, is also maybe if it still keeps feeding you. But on a professional level, it does, it can have consequences, of course, if you're not visible because you said no. This will lead maybe to less invitation, less this or that. So yeah, it is a very hard one to support maybe somebody else saying no. But it's a subject because I'm working in an artistic research school in Brussels, and they have a care week next week. So it's the subject is on the table.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is, I think, one of the buzzwords, what we were talking about before. But I wanted to, what you were saying, also go to Esther, because I think you said, like, yeah, you have an 80-hour work week, and then sometimes, like, I think we all know that, like, you also feel like an urge with what you're making. So there is also free labor, because you feel like I almost, like, something that I find very important and no one gives a shit about, and I still get money to make this. And then I think, like, Esther, what I think is very admirable in how you, how to say, like, addressing social issues, actually, and making, like, personal things collective, is also a lot of free labor in actually creating money for other people, which is, like, is inherently social. So how do you, for example, let's say, like, this whole Groningen Corona thing, maybe you spend, let's say, 50 hours, emails, reading, whatever, and you don't get paid for that. So in that sense, it's also care work, it's invisible labor, it's free labor. But I mean, I get, like, that you feel like, but the collective voice is so important, and someone should do it because we're all these individual artists. So how do you relate to that sort of labor and say, like, okay, so now there is more funding for the artist. I did this amount of work, so I need to calculate my hours in. Like, is that a possibility?
Well, it's most of the work I did should have been done by the municipality, because part of it is giving insight in the situation of Groningen, of artists in Groningen, and the position of artists and institutions and subsidies, or like how proportion-wise this is going. And this we gave as artists insight to the municipality, and even the wethouder, law-keeper, Paul de Rook, back then, when he saw it actually in a diagram, you know, he was also quite shocked in the way the money was spent. So it's actually part of it is of course showing back to the people who made the decisions. Like, this is what you do, you know, like a mirror almost, and giving insight by collecting all the artists and raising a voice. And on the other hand, I see also that it's my responsibility as artist to not, I feel it as a responsibility to, when I say no, I should also propose something else. That's how I, would fit in what you were asking also. Like only saying no is reacting on the system in what someone else has proposed. But we as artists create, also new situations, new ways. And so I'm always for proposing new ways.
Yeah. I am very shocked, but we're way over time. I thought we just started talking. I am going. We need to wrap this up. I'm so sorry, but luckily we still have our workshops, and then afterwards we can continue. No, you wanted to make a very important point.
I thought there are now going to be a whole lot of questions.
No, I think like what's been very clear, like in
workshops.
Please give me a second. Like in this panel and also in the previous panel, is that like change is needed. That's I think is very clear, and therefore trust and courage, both from like the sector, but also from the government and also within each other. So I think this is. I feel very positive about change being possible. Actually, I'm not sure. Like anyone else. Okay, great, thank you. Just a few brief final things that if you feel like diving deeper into this matter of policy and care, and there's Felice is selling books, the Boekman Stichting, and as said before, like all money will go to the Giro 555. There are spots left in every workshop, I just heard. And wait, where is this one letter? Yeah. So there's 4 different workshops now. No, 4, sorry. Which is one from Lieselot van Damme. Can you stand up, please? Lieselot will talk about lobbying, which has a bit of a dirty name, but you're going to say that you're going to completely debunk that myth. Then Koen Bartijn, who is also here from Platform BK, who will talk about the artistic biotope as a private and practical balance. And then there is Willem de Haan here in the front, who's going to give a workshop about exhibiting in alternative contexts. And last but not least is a workshop with Arjan van Weert, which is in Dutch. Dag, hallo, which will be an introduction in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And give us like 5 minutes. Well, there will be a corner there, and there will be here. So there's we will just stay in this room, have a workshop. So have a smoke, have a drink, have a talk. Oh, and I should say something else. I can't hear this. Oh, question, please. Oh, or a remark, anything. Any questions?
But it's just like adding up to Esther. That I wanted to say that there's always an in-between, between yes and no. It's just not so black and white. And I think no with a proposal, or like saying, like there is also something between the two. And it's not that you always have to say no. You can in solidarity say something else for another, I think. And you can propose, if somebody asks you for an exhibition and you can't, you can also propose somebody else to give the space to another.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good point. Anyone else?
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, because there's one diagram in it where you see these. I think Alban once said that to me, and I picked it up. It's from Joey Roth. He was just a designer, but there's.
Oh yeah.
There's this. There's 2 pyramids, and then
this
there's
one.
a cube.
Yay!
So the charlatan talks a lot. The martyr.
Oh wait, I can go back.
Does too much. No, you saw it, and then the hustler, which maybe has a bit of bad connotation, but I mean to hustle is to find ways to
Get
to
that
make
bread.
those two things work together. And then actually you get like a cube, which is more than just one single pyramid. So, I mean, just to respond to the in between the yes and the no, there's also try to find a solution sometimes.
Like a common ground in the gray zone of...
I think that's a mindset that helps a lot. Like, see it a bit as a game. If you're struggling, like getting funding or whatever, there's always a bit of there needs to be this hustle mentality that doesn't need to be neoliberal, but it's more like.
I was also thinking about what you said earlier, that you're like helping people in your as like a technician and stuff, and staying overtime. Like, to me, it feels like that also a lot, that you're in this thing together somehow, because we're all artists, and like, I don't mind doing all this extra work unpaid for other people, just because I want them to succeed as much as I want myself to be successful as well. Yeah.
So let's keep hustling, everyone. Thanks for...
Community vibes. That's
Get that bread.
Thank you all for coming, and let's have a drink.
Thank you, Mirthe.
Thank you, Steven. Moet dit is.